Welcome to Monday Musings with the Blended Mama, gentle encouragement for busy women finding calm in the chaos. I'm Teresa, and this is a quiet place to pause at the start of your week. No pressure, no productivity lecture, just a few minutes of perspective and one small step to carry you forward into the days ahead. I'm really glad you're here. And this episode is going to definitely be a little bit different because life has been a little different lately. If you're not part of my community or you don't know me personally, you might have thought I just dropped off the face of the earth the last couple of weeks. Because I haven't done any of my normal tasks, including this podcast, which is supposed to be every Monday. But I haven't done those things since the beginning of May. Now, if you've been around a while, you know that we've been spending this season, the last few weeks, talking about friendship, community, vulnerability, and finding your people as we are walking through this book, Finding Your People, um, in book club. And honestly, I didn't necessarily expect to live the lessons out while reading the book. But a couple of weeks ago, my son was in a serious car accident, and while the doctors told us it was a miracle he survived, if he had been older, he would not have. The accident also uncovered some underlying health issues that we didn't know were there. So, in a matter of moments, hours, everything changed. Um, and suddenly, the things that I've been reading about in this book and about community and support and safe people, those weren't just theories anymore. They were reality, and I needed them to be true. Um, so complete transparency, I definitely cried a lot like a baby. Um, as I'm sure you can imagine when I first got that phone call, which all I knew then was that my son had flipped his car. Um, if you are around me very often, you know I don't cry in real life very easily. I cry at books, I cry at movies, I cry at TV shows, but in real life scenarios, I don't cry very much. But this was definitely different. And all I knew was that my son had flipped his car. I didn't know if he was alive. I didn't know how bad it was, but I mean, flipping your car sounds pretty bad by itself, right? Um, I knew that I needed to get there. I knew I needed to be with him. I knew I needed to lay my eyes on him and touch him and make sure he was okay. And if you're a parent, you can imagine what that is like. And that feeling just really kind of settles somewhere deep inside. Um, and then came hospital rooms, right? Questions, tests, doctors, long nights. Now it was about a 2.5 hour drive from where I live, so it wasn't like I could just drive down the street and see him, right? But we did all those things, and then we had more questions and an endoscopy and unexpected answers that led to a lot of mom guilt because when we found out what was really going on underneath all of the things, I just thought, how did I miss this, right? Why didn't I ask about XYZ? Why didn't I push for more information? But I didn't know. And the nurse made sure that she told me there was no way you could have known, right? So, and I'm so grateful for that. Um, but I think a lot of moms can probably understand that too, right? The weight, the replaying of things over and over in your mind for the last 20 years, right? And then the wondering and just all the unknowns. But what kind of surprised me as we went through this the last couple of weeks was the people who just said yes immediately without hesitation. And I think a lot of times we wonder if we even have a community, do we have people that we can rely on to be there? And I'm going to just tell you that you never know until you're in that situation who's going to show up because some people who did were not who I would have expected, and it wasn't that the people I expected would call didn't. It's just that there were other people who did reach out that I wasn't necessarily expecting it, right? So, but the people who said yes were, the friends who came and took care of our dog and our cats because I didn't know if I would be home that night because it wasn't like I was going to come back and forth. It was a 2.5 hour drive. So, and as it turned out, I wasn't in my home for 2 more days after that. And even that was just to shower, pick up clothes, and drive to the next hospital. So, they took care of our fur babies. My friend who literally was on her way to come pick me up to drive me to the hospital because she wasn't sure if I was okay to drive. My brother and his family who drove several hours across the state just to ultimately spend 5 minutes with my son in the ER before the visiting hours ended, and that was it, right? 5 minutes with him. There were moments where I picked up my phone and I had these PayPal alerts, and it just said for coffee, praying for you guys because they knew I needed something and that was a tangible way for them to help. Gift cards for meals, which we are still using. Hallelujah, I don't like to cook. Food that was brought to us, chicken noodle soup after we got home. And yeah, I don't like to cook. So those were huge for me. Um, Especially as we were navigating a liquid diet for my son and regular food for the rest of us. And like that felt like I was going to need to cook two different things. And it's just a lot, right? But those things, they all mattered, every single one. And I think what struck me the most wasn't necessarily the size of the gesture. It was just that people moved toward our hurt and our angst and our overwhelm. They didn't wait, they showed up. And there were all the people in my village who I already knew, and that was amazing. But I will also say some people come across and they just become part of your village for a very short time. And one of those people was our very last nurse, who she has some of the same underlying conditions to what my son is now navigating. And she really kind of normalized things. She talked with him honestly. She shared some practical tips, validated some of his experiences over the last few years. And funny enough, some of the things that she told him are things that we've been saying for years without realizing the medical pieces underneath, but just trying to help him. Like we could see, well, this works when you do this, so do that more. She was validating that. And I don't know if she knows how much she impacted us or impacted him, but suddenly he didn't feel alone in all of it, right? And somebody understood what he was going through because I definitely don't. All I see is the mom view of I want my baby, my 20-year-old baby, to be healthy, right? But I think that is something that safe people do. They don't necessarily fix things, right? But they remind you that you're not carrying things by yourself and they're willing to be there and walk beside you. Also, she totally validated a prescription for chocolate milk, which frankly he's been living on for a little bit. And so that made her instantly iconic in his eyes. But I do think the GI doctor's probably going to revoke that in the in the very near term. But for now, we're going to take the win, and he can have all the chocolate milk that he wants. Um, so some things kind of changed for me. Community used to mean finding people who supported me, who cared about me, that, it was about my little community, right? But now, after kind of experiencing what we've gone through, it's not just about my friends, right? But it's about people supporting the people that I love too, whether that's family or friends or just, my extended network. But people that I know stepping up to help someone else that I know, supporting my son, encouraging him, praying for him, helping him stay afloat as he figures out returning to work and navigating the new realities that come with some of the things that he's facing. And that really just kind of changed something for me because I am a little bit different after this. I needed my community in a very big way, and they showed up in unexpected ways. And I'm just so grateful for that. Um, Someone asked me recently if I had questioned God in all of this. And honestly, the answer was no. It never even crossed my mind. And it wasn't because I understood why we were going through all this. I don't. And it definitely wasn't because I have answers, because I still don't have all the answers. But in all of this, I just had this overwhelming peace. Um, Not at the first phone call, but after we were with him and I could see him, I did feel peace that it was all going to work out eventually, right? Um, and that in situations like this, that is definitely unusual, because I am a tell me the why kind of person. And I'm still doing all the research on all the things. So please don't mistake this for, oh, she's just going with the flow. I'm not. But I'm not stressing out. about the answers. I'm just looking for the answers, if that makes sense. Um, but this time I wasn't asking why. I didn't need the why. I am choosing to believe that there was a reason that these things were discovered when they were discovered, and that somehow, even here, God was protecting him from something else, that he was providing for him, that he was holding us together in all of this. And maybe part of faith is trusting before having understanding, right? So if you have your planner or your journal handy, I do have some thoughts I want you guys to think about and reflect on after having all of these experiences. I just wanted to give you some maybe different perspective about community and friendship. So I've got a few different reflection questions for you. So the first one is, who showed up for me? And I think sometimes, we're looking for people to show up in a very specific way, but that's not always going to be what happens. People are going to show up in ways that make sense to them or that they are capable of doing or whatever. And sometimes we need to just acknowledge they showed up for me in this way. It might not have been what I was looking for or what I thought I needed, but they did show up, right? And then think about, how did they help? What was it that they did for you? How did they show up? Um, and then what do you want to remember about that situation? Because memory fades. I can tell you that mine does. If it doesn't get written down, I'm definitely going to forget about it. But your memory fades, details fade. And I think that important, I just think it's important for us to kind of reflect on those things and remember them, because even those important seasons eventually kind of soften around the edges and you kind of forget, like you remember, oh, I went through XYZ, but it's not as clear as it used to be, right? And I think when you're going, especially when you're going through maybe a rough season, um, I don't want to forget how people showed up for us in the season. I hope I don't forget. I don't want to forget how they showed up for our family when they needed them. And I don't want to forget that I'm probably going to need to return that favor to others in the future, right? So I want to be aware of what other people in my village are needing and try to be there in the ways that I'm able to. I think we all have different capacities at different points in our life, but I think it's important for us to be on the lookout for how we can step in the gap for our friends as they are going through challenging seasons. So as you kind of move through this week, I really want you to think about, who is in your village. Have you thanked them for being part of your village, for showing up for you? And who might need you to show up for them right now? And maybe even a harder question is, can you receive support when it's offered? Because there were definitely people who offered, but I didn't know what to ask for. So like I just said I was fine. So sometimes maybe that's another thing to think about is instead of saying reach out if you need anything, maybe it's, I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee. Can I send you the money via PayPal or Venmo or whatever? Or I'd like to send a meal. Is there a restaurant you prefer or whatever? But whatever way it is that you would like to help, just ask about that specific thing and see how that works for them. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. But this season has definitely taught me that the best thing that people did for us wasn't, like I said, wasn't waiting for instructions. They just did something, anything. That took a lot of mental load off of me because I didn't know what I needed in that moment. And I mean, honestly, even taking a shower, like I didn't want to leave the hospital room. So, and I didn't want to use the hospital shower either. That just felt gross. So, it really took some encouragement from my husband and the right timing and opportunity to say, you know what, just go home, take a shower, and then go here. Because while it was on the way, it wasn't really on the way. I mean, it was half hour out of the way. But anyway, so if somebody has come to your mind while you've been listening to this podcast, send the text, drop off the food, pray for them, offer coffee, show up for them. And I do want to say, don't underestimate prayer, not for 1 second. Um, People might say, I can't do much, but I can pray. And I will say that that is the biggest thing that you can do. And I do think that we had a lot of people praying for us, still have a lot of people praying for us. And I think that might be why I had more peace than I might have expected in all of the things. I do believe that those prayers carried us through the worst of it. I know they carried me. I think they're still carrying us forward. Um, and I don't want us to ever discount the power of prayer for other people. Um, so you learn who your village is when you need one, and the people who show up, they matter. So I want you to just, consider reaching out to one person who has shown up for you. Thank them. Tell them what it meant to you. Don't assume that they know. Um, Now, if this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to follow the show, so you don't miss what is coming next. Hopefully, we're going to be here next Monday. That's my plan. If you would like encouragement throughout the week, you can join my email list to share reflections like this, planning tips, and updates from our community. We are also walking through Find Your People together in book club. If you're interested in our next book club, you can find the link in the show notes. Everything's going to be in the show notes. You can go to theblendedmama.com/links. That is going to be where you can find all the things. But until next time, friends, keep planning with purpose, coordinate that chaos, and I will see you right here next Monday, as long as everything goes well. All right, friends, take care.